Hello, folks. Welcome to this edition of Al's Joint. I'm here in Portland, Oregon, investigating if the Trump's attempt to militarize this city is warranted. I'll be joined by my co-host, Dennis Painter, as we tackle these issues. So as we pay homage to Simply Red, holding back the years, let's take the gloves off and let's get at it. Well, here we go again, Brother Painter. Another segment, another week full of problems, and they all generate out of one place, White House and that Trump administration.
It's amazing how one person can create so much chaos.
Well, I'm currently in Portland, Oregon. So my youngest son decided he wanted to move to Portland, Oregon, and we decided to come up together to make sure everything worked out well. Figure while I'm up here, we can look around and see all this crime that the Trump administration says is happening in Portland, Oregon. And let me tell you, we have yet to see what they're talking about. We've been in over 24 neighborhoods at night, during the day. And although there's an issue here with the homeless folks, I don't think this is a city that folks should be gearing up to try to fight crime with the National Guard or even ICE for that matter. The residents here are laid back. The homeless folks are not a problem, but there is a problem with homelessness. So I think you touched on it when we were talking earlier that the financial inequalities here has put people in a position where they can't afford to live anywhere. They have to be out on the streets. And when you add that to the fact that they've closed many of the state mental hospitals and they cut programs to help with social issues, you shouldn't be surprised that the homeless issue is growing the way it is.
Well, I see it as, I mean, you and I, we were in the labor movement, all our lives, and that there's this constant drive by the rich to take from those that produce. And then even though they may be homeless, doesn't mean they're not working. It just means they can't afford a place to stay. And what comes to my mind, Al, is there was a young lady years ago. She worked at a plant we were organizing in Dayton, Ohio. She lived by herself. She had one son, and she got pregnant, and she's working 50 hours a week. And I went to her house, talked to her about the union. She, energetic about the union, and she was crying. I said, "What are you crying about?" She said, "I got to quit." I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "I'm working 50 hours a week. I'm a single mother. I'm about to have another baby. I have no health care. I have to quit just to get health care." The place that we as a country are putting people, we're doing it to our own citizens. And I say we as being the rich, their greed is doing this to our own citizens. And we're supposed to be here as a country, all of us together. And unfortunately, what, the rich see it is their country, and then they want to demean us for either define them or people being on the streets because they're forced there by the rich.
Well, I know that in the work that we've done in the labor movement over the last 4 decades, I've seen the closings of so many agencies that were intended to help folks. But I've also seen over that time that people were okay with closing schools, but building prisons. They argue and complain about their tax dollars being used, the most needy, but they won't have any pushback on building all these prisons and then privatizing them. And in addition to that, you have an NFL team. They want to hold their city hostage and spend a couple $1 billion building a new stadium for them. They're happy to do that. That arena normally sits empty for 360 days or 360, 50 days a year, right? It costs the taxpayer billions of dollars. People won't say anything about that, but try to build another school or try to build another facility that can help with the homeless, and people will be up in arms. It just shows you how selfish we become as a country, and we look at them as villains when they're victims.
Well, I look at my own situation when it comes to that. And, I look at it in terms of the taxes I pay. I'm retired. I have to pay taxes on my house. I have to pay school tax. Even though I don't have any children in school, I have to pay property tax, even though, I paid for the property years ago, and I don't mind paying for fire and rescue and road taxes and all of that. I think the real rub here that gets me is that the working people are struggling, and we're watching uh, them build these stadiums, like you said, at taxpayer money, which means that money that could be diverted to help the citizens is actually being diverted to help the corporations or the very wealthy. At the same time, we're watching the wealthy get permanent tax cuts, and there is no permanent tax cut or tax assistance for those who really need it. And the same thing's going on here in Ohio. We're having stadiums built, but at the same time, we're not getting any tax relief. We're paying for that stuff. I think it's way out of hand. I understand people's frustrations. I get frustrated. You think I don't get frustrated when I go down to pay my property taxes on a social security income? It's not easy. I don't know about blue state, but I live in red state. I went and contested the taxes one time. You have that right. And the guy coming out said, look, you're wasting your time. It was a guy that had already been in there contested his. And I went in there and said, look, here I am. This is my income law. This is my property value. They said, we see it different. And the guy was right. I wasted my time. They're going to take your money. At the same time, they're giving all these tax breaks to corporations and saying, we're helping America. Well, they're not helping America. It's like in Portland. They got all the people that are homeless. They're homeless for a reason. There's reasons for that. And we're not investing any money into that. And we're not making America great again by not helping our own citizens.
I agree. We've been conditioned to look to our right and our left and not up. We look to our right, to our left, we look down. We want to make sure the people below us don't catch us. We want to complain about what the people on the right or the left have. But the folks above us, we never look up and say, hey, you have too much up there. That's one of the biggest problems that we have in this country, that they've conditioned us to fight each other while they reap all the benefits. And they never have to worry about going without a meal or not being able to go on vacation with your family, or not getting help for your loved ones when they need it the most, whether it's medical, emotional, mental, whatever. They have the ability to do that. We have to suffer through that.
You're absolutely right on that. Absolutely correct. I mean, we go through this as a country, or have been going through this as a country time and again. Part of the reason is people don't study history. There's cycles that we go through. We have people pushed down to the very lowest point until there's nowhere else for us to go but to push back. Obviously, when we start pushing back, the very rich, they want to hire goons essentially to keep us down. And right now, our current president is using the National Guard as a means to keep us down and to defy those who think their First Amendment rights and the way he's handling the immigrants is wrong.
So why don't we just segue right into the Epstein update? Because one of
Well,
the things I believe has happened is that they've continually taken any opportunity they've had to distract us from what should be one of the biggest, probably the most damaging situations that any administration has ever been in. And I think they needed to distract us, and I think they're doing a good job to distract us. And I think we got to get back focused on exactly what happened to them young um, teenage girls and boys.
I agree with you on that, but if you don't mind, I'd like to go through a couple things on the National Guard, which is part of the distraction. Okay, and people need to see it. Trump stated on the news that he's sending in the National Guard because it's necessary to quell violence in democratic controlled cities and crack down on crime. Now, he doesn't say what crime, but obviously trafficking of underage girls is a crime. He's not even talked about that whatsoever. These are the following states that have requested, the governors have requested the National Guard to come in. Alabama, red state, no National Guard. Florida, red state. Louisiana, red state. Mississippi, red state. Missouri, they requested National Guard for logistic support only. Ohio, red state. You and I both know that Ohio and Cleveland has crime. South Carolina, red state. South Dakota, red state. Tennessee's a red state, but they did deploy in Memphis. Texas, red state. Virginia is a blue state. West Virginia, red state, and Wyoming, a red state. National Guard has not been sent into those. So
You might consider Virginia a purple state, a swing state.
that's true
So
too. Yeah,
that would show why he doesn't want to put folks there.
that's true. But these are people that have requested it, and by and large, they're not Democratic controlled states. They don't have a large Democratic control base. I looked at the map, red states versus blue states, and then did the research on who had requested it and who has not received any help.
I understand what he's doing. I just hope folks open their eyes because it makes no sense. It only makes sense when you wonder that, okay, he needs a distraction.
I'm requesting, and I think, America should be requesting. And that's to send a National Guard out to obtain the Epstein files. You want law and order, okay, let's send the National Guard out to get the Epstein files. You put yourself out there as president of law and order, then let's do some law and order. Let's protect the underage girls. Let's send the troops out to do something meaningful instead of sending them to cities and they're arresting people for expired speeding tickets and that type of thing. Let's do something real with the National Guard. If you want to truly go after crime, then let's start with the Epstein files, because there's no larger crime other than murder than raping underage girls, in my opinion, and underage boys.
And underage girls and boys.
Yeah, in that way, that's murder itself because you kill their childhood without their permission. So you're looking at all of this, and yeah, he's trying to distract America from that, and he's doing it in a number of ways. But I've been seeing more and more people from his supporters demanding that he step up and release the Epstein files, even with all these distractions. And I think America needs to stay on that. We need to tell him that we will not give up until the government deepest, darkest secrets are exposed. I don't care whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents or whoever, they get exposed. These women need to be offered justice. They need it to protect current and future children. We need to step up and say that being a pedophile is wrong. And what Trump is saying is being a pedophile is okay. I'm gonna go after somebody that's working and has a green card and call that illegal, but I won't say raping a young girl is illegal and I won't do anything about it. And I'll go on sometimes, but I get worked up because it's social justice.
It's an emotional issue.
Yeah, whether you red or blue or in between, religious, non-religious, we all should be fighting for our constitutional rights. We all should be fighting for, social justice. We all should be fighting for law and everyone be equal under the law, which means being prosecuted under the law equally, not some being prosecuted and others, because of their money or their position, get a free pass. That's not law and order.
I believe that I'll go back to the Charlie Kirk shooting, how it relates to what I'm about to address. When people see things in real time, they become more emotional over it. And I think that's why you had the emotional flash that happened after the Charlie Kirk shooting of people actually seen it. Unfortunately, these women, their lives have been destroyed. Once they're telling their story, they're much older. And people look at that and they say, oh, that's wrong, but they don't feel the empathy or the
Right.
sympathy for those folks. I would hope that with their permission, they're able to show the pictures of themselves at the age when they were molested, when they were 12 and 14, so people can actually see who was molested. Not that raping a woman of any age shouldn't be taken and given the sympathy that it deserves. Unfortunately, in this society, they look at what's in front of them and they look at that person as a victim, and they're not understanding that these folks were 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girls and boys. I hope that at some point they just show all those victims when the crime happened to them, and we can try to get justice for them, because I think that they had to figure out a plan to keep people attention away, and it's going to get worse because at some point the Epstein files are going to be released, and by that time they need to be in a position where it doesn't matter to that administration. They're attacking the U.S. cities. Of course, they used right-wing assassination of Charlie Kirk. They tried to ride that as long as they could to keep people distracted. They started attacking free speech. Now they're raiding American homes. There's still a lot more they can do, and I'm sure they're looking at it. They're going to continue to do it as long as they think they need to distract us.
You're correct on that, Al. And given all the things that can happen, in this country, there's no end to an evil person's ability to create distractions. Some of the things I've been reading about Trump supporters, and I'm going to do some quotes here. The supporters of Trump called the president out of touch and are demanding transparency on the Epstein files. And that's his base. Now, that's in response to Trump defending Attorney General Pam Bondi, stating there was no Epstein client list, which before she said there was. So now she's lying, and the president's upholding the lie. Trump supporters continue to urge him to release the Epstein files or risk losing his base. Now, he said on media he didn't care about MAGA supporters anymore, which, of course, we talked about that before, that, there weren't going to be any free elections. In 2015 into 2016, Trump made statements that the government had deep state. There was a deep state, like holding secrets from the American people. Well, that's come back to haunt him. And now his own supporters are saying, you're the deep state. And I see this stuff. Trump's, in his first term, his national security advisor, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, sent him an email and pleaded with Trump to release the Epstein files, stating, and I'm quoting, please understand the Epstein affair is not going away. Now, this is from his side. So I'm saying let's call it like it is. Trump's the pedophile, always has been. Okay. The
I,
right sees it.
I would agree with you 100%.
So let's do it. Now and it may be a distraction. Trump stated Monday, October 6th, that he would consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, who was convicted of sex crimes. Okay. After the Supreme Court rejected her request for an appeal, he said he would consider that.
He
Huh?
has to, right? There's only two
Oh,
things can happen. So he can either partner, or she talks, or she'll end up taking her own life, and they'll say that she was depressed because the Supreme Court denied her appeal. But so they have to partner. They're not going to kill her. Come on,
yeah.
everybody knows that. They can't risk it. No matter what anybody says, as long as she doesn't speak, they can get away with it. Because right now they're trying to put us in a position where there won't be any more elections in the United States.
Yeah. No, I
Right.
agree with
So
you on
it won't matter. But I tell folks that because I had an argument with a gentleman, and he said I had Trump derangement syndrome, and I told him he damn Skippy. If a pedophile moved into my neighborhood, I don't care if he ran for the PTA president and became a member of the PTA, became a member of the church choir. Every day I'm gonna tell folks in that neighborhood there's a pedophile around. Be leery. You don't just get to walk away from being a pedophile. But the neighborhood that the pedophile moved in is America's neighborhood. The White House is everybody's neighborhood. And we have a pedophile in there, and he's going to do whatever he can to make sure that the citizens of this country doesn't get to hear that before he can take over. That's the key. Once his plan is done and he can take over, he doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care if you think he's a pedophile or not. He'll be in power. He'll be a dictator. and he understands that. So that's what he's pushing for now. The only question is there enough pushback from the American people to get from reaching that point before it's too late?
I mean, he's above all that in his mind. He does not care what people think. He don't care if he's on the side criticizes him because he said, I don't need you anymore. So he don't care. He don't care the fact that he's broken the law. That's been his life.
He has the backing of his 35% MAGA base, right? But somebody told me yesterday that Donald Trump told the MAGA folks, you can take the white hoods off now and put on a red hat. You don't have to hide in the shadows anymore. Just take the hoods off, put on a red hat, say and do whatever you would do when you had the white hood on. So they got exactly what they want. So it doesn't matter what he's done or what he's going to do. That 35% is going to be okay with it because he gave them something socially that they craved. And that's unfortunate because you would think in this country at this point, things would be getting to the point where we're all American, and we're figuring out how to make life better for each other and not going back 100 years where we had to constantly fight and bicker over things that like basic rights for each other.
You're right about that. And so that's why, you and I've said it, we're not talking to that 35%. We're talking to the people that's in between. Okay, the people that are the swing. Okay, and that's who he's concerned about. He knows that his loyal base, he'll keep, but he can't win with 35%. That's the problem. So how do you do that? You either increase, the numbers in your base, or you don't hold elections. He's targeting these Democratic cities and Democratic held states to make sure that he's got troops in place and he's going to manufacture some type of uprising and justify having them there and attacking American people to keep them away from the polls, to scare them away from polls and keep them away from polls. It's up to the American people. It's up to the 65% to say, make the Epstein files public. We don't need a pedophile for a president. It's up to us to say, we don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican or prime minister. We don't care. Make those files public and hold those individuals accountable. Now, the fight is a combined fight, as you pointed out. It's the Epstein files and justice. It's also fight over power and fight over whether this country will stay have any resemblance of being a democratic republic.
Well, I want folks to know that on October 18th, they're going to have a second No Kings Day. Folks need to figure out where those rallies and demonstrations are taking place in your city. Get out there and attend. Be a part of the struggle to take our country back from those far right-wing nuts. That's a step. I think the first round of protests, we had tens of millions of folks out in the street. It was a successful. Folks understand where we're at, but we want to see if we can make that movement grow so that folks understand that we're the ones on the right side of history fighting to keep our country and our democracy. And we have to figure it out. Other countries are looking at us and they're looking at us wondering, are we going to figure out how to maintain this experiment called democracy?
Everyone should be getting out and participating in that because that's going to matter. Now, whether all of them will or not, there are some Republican elected officials, and I will not call them leaders, but that are starting to pay some attention to what's going on. Now, they're going to pay a price if they defect. When if that price is they're no longer in favor with Trump and he gets kicked out, well, that's the same price as if you don't do the right thing, you might be able to have an opportunity to survive. So we'll see. I'll be out there demonstrating. I'm sure you will be. I'll be encouraging those around me to do the same. And it's the right thing to do. We're on the right side of history. And like I started out, this is not going to go away. We're not going away. And we've been through many fights, and this is just another one. And we're up for the fight.
I agree, my friend. We will be participating in that No Kings Day, and hopefully we'll get a new faces involved. That's the key. So, but until then, let's keep up the good fight, and I'll see you next week.
All right, my friend. Take
All right,
care.
take care. So, folks, thanks for taking time to watch this episode of Al's Joint. Don't forget to hit the share, like, and subscribe button below and leave your comments. We're interested in what you're saying, unless you're a far right wing MAGA nut and we don't give a damn what you're saying or what you're thinking. So, until next week, let's make sure we fight to take our country back from these far right wing MAGA nuts. Peace.
This episode of Al's Joint is brought to you by Jackpack.